In this video we're going to talk about pronunciation per request from one of you. Czech language tends to use a lot of consonants together. You probably noticed that. There are words with 2, 3 or 4 consonants all together. They're clustered together and that's why they're called consonant clusters. Sometimes it is a bit tricky to pronounce them. Certain consonants are not pronounced the same way. Depends what's around them, what type of consonants they are neighboring with. Take a look at this word, yesterday. How do we read it? Včera, včera. But this is a letter V, V. In other words, this is read as V. But here it is F, včera. What about this one? Hezký, pretty or nice. Hezký has Z here, Z. However, here it is hezký. And this is an example of a word with lots of consonants together, čtvrtek, which curiously behaves. All the consonants are pronounced as they are normally pronounced. Č, t, v, r, t. So, what is the rule? The answer is the assimilation of voice. This is what we're going to talk about today. Jdeme na to. Dobrý den, vítejte na mém kanále Czech by Zuzka, kde vám pomocí angličtiny vysvětluju českou gramatiku. First, let's talk a bit about vocal cords. When we speak, we need vocal cords to produce sounds, and of course, other parts of our mouth. But the vocal cords is one of the instruments that is the key, and there are voiceless and voiced consonants. Not only in Czech, in many other languages. When you pronounce a voiced consonant, your vocal cords vibrate. And when you pronounce a voiceless consonant, there is no vibration. For example, we have these two sounds, b, p. They are created exactly in the same place. We need the two lips, b and p, b, p. The only difference is that when we pronounce b, B, our vocal cords vibrate. B, our vocal cords rest. This is one pair. I want you to take a look at this table that shows you which consonants are voiceless and which are voiced. The voiced consonants are marked in yellow and the voiceless ones are marked in blue. And then you also have the term paired consonants, like B and P is one of those pairs, and unpaired consonants. It really helps to know about this, because then you can understand the Czech pronunciation. So B and P is one of the pairs. You can test the vibration of your vocal cords when you place your hand on top of your head and you say B, 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 as in babička, grandmother, babička, B, B, B. You hear it vibrates here, B. And if you say P, P, P as in Praha, P, there is nothing. B, P, B, P. Another pair is D, T. You can do the same thing. D, T. Or J, J. G, K. H, H. H in Czech is voiced. H, H is just air coming out. V, F. Z, S. J, Sh. And then we have the unpaired consonants. M, N, N, Y, L, R, R. There is also vibration, except these are not paired with anything. As well as ts, ch. They are voiceless. There is no pair for them. Let's take a look again at the word včera. Včera, yesterday. And the mystery behind F here. Why do we say včera? Czech is quite complex when it comes to pronunciation, but there is something that we want to make simpler. So if we pronounced V, voiced, včera, we think it would be too difficult. We don't say včera, we say včera. Včera is so much easier. You barely pronounce the first letter. You can almost say včera and nobody would notice. But the thing is, V, when you look at the table, V is voiced. V is voiced. I'm gonna use this color to mark the voiced. And ch is voiceless. And when you put them together, it's complicated. So what happens? A thing called regressive assimilation of voice happens. Regressive means something goes back, So we take a look at this consonant, ch, which is the last consonant in the group, and it influences the consonant behind it, which is v. So it goes back, it's regressive. And because ch is voiceless, v will become voiceless. How does it become voiceless? Remember the pair? When you look at v, what's underneath is f. F is the voiceless counterpart for v. So they both become voiceless. So if we had to write it somehow, it would be like this. Včera, voiceless, voiceless. There is no problem. Včera. First, I want to show you the regressive assimilation of voice, where a voiced consonant changes to a voiceless one. A well-known word, poléfka, where v becomes f, poléfka. We know that v is voiced, k is voiceless, when you look at the table again. And what happens? Remember the arrow going back. K wants to influence v, v becomes f. They're both voiceless, poléfka. What about this word? Obchod, p. You can say p very confidently, obchod, because it is pronounced as p. That's the correct pronunciation. And we can verify it, start from the end. So the consonant cluster is right here. B, h. H is voiceless. Voiceless h. And then voiced b. What happens? H influences b. And b has a pair that's p. And it will become b. Obchod. Two voiceless consonants. What about this word? Odtud. Odtud, it's a funny way of pronouncing it, means from here, because t is voiceless, d is voiced, t influences d, d goes to t, and we end up with double t, no problem. Odtud, odtud. Hezký, we had that at the beginning. Now you know why we pronounce s here, because it's influenced by k. Voiceless, voiced, and when you look at the pair, it becomes s. Just like my name, the shorter version of my name is Zuzka. Zuzka, and there is an S, but you don't write the S. Because of this, voiceless, voiced, and you know the rest of the story. It doesn't happen only within one word. When we have short, unstressed prepositions, that means just one syllable prepositions, if they finish with a consonant, it could also be affected by the letter that comes after it. For example, this one. These short and unstressed prepositions are actually pronounced together with the following word. That's the way it is in Czech. You don't say pod stolem, you say pod stolem. Pod stolem. Because of st, they're both voiceless, no problem. And d is influenced, goes to t, pod stolem. And then we end up with some interesting combinations like this. Těžší means heavier, and because sh is voiceless, ž is voiced. Sh influences ž. We end up with double sh. Těžší. Although here we don't pronounce double sh, we simply say těžší. And we can also have voiceless consonants going to voiced for the same reason. For example, this word kde. You can confidently say g, kde, because d is voiced, g is voiceless. The same thing happens, but here it's exactly the other way around. D influences g, and then k becomes g, g, which is, as you can see in the table, paired consonant, g, k. Kdy, the same story, d, k, kdy. Kdo, d voiced and k voiceless. So we have kde, kdy, kdo. Even here, nikdo, no one, nikdo, nikdo. For example, there's also this phrase jak kdy. Jak kdy, it's an informal way of saying it depends. Literally, how, when. Jak kdy would actually be pronounced with double G, because here we have d and then k. These are voiceless. D would influence both of them. Jak kdy, jak kdy, jak kdy. words such as zbalit. Zbalit, there is z here. Zbalit means to pack everything. So it's useful to remember these pairs. So let's take a look at some words containing prepositions. Like I said, when we have short prepositions, such as k, s, z, and v, those would often be affected. For example, in the word v knihovně, this is pronounced as f, and now you can see why. Because k is voiceless, v is voiced, and now you know that k influenced v. So we pronounce it as v knihovně, as one word with f here, v knihovně, in the library. But if we say v domě, nothing happens. This is v, this is d, v domě, because both d and v are voiced, so there is nothing to be done. Let's see some other examples with these prepositions. When we take the preposition v, which means in or at, on when it comes to weekdays, for example here, v pondělí, on Monday. Now you understand why we pronounce it as f, v pondělí. But let's verify. V is voiceless. V is voiced, and it is influenced by p. V pondělí, v pondělí. The same is here. V Praze, in Prague. V Praze. Or v těle, in the body. And the preposition k can sound as g sometimes. For example, k babičce, to grandmas, k babičce, because b is voiced, k is voiceless, and it is influenced by b, becomes voiced, k babičce, or k doktorovi, k doktorovi. Just like s can become z, s babičkou, for the same reason. Voiced, voiceless, and it is influenced s babičkou, s doktorem, s doktorem. With grandma, with the doctor. Here it's the other way around. Z becomes s, z chaty. It is influenced, and we say s, z chaty, from the cottage. Or z pondělí, from Monday to Tuesday, for example. Z pondělí. Let's read these. V pondělí, v Praze, v těle. Now, g, k babičce, k doktorovi. S babičkou, s doktorem. S chaty, z pondělí. And now it's time for the exceptions. There are always exceptions, of course. The letter V, when V is preceded by another consonant, it does not have any power. I'll explain. We have a consonant and then a consonant V. For example, the word tvůj, your, tvůj. If we follow the rule that I just explained to you, we would say V is voiced, T is voiceless, it should be dvoje, but it's not. It just so happens that V does not have any power when it's preceded by another voiceless consonant. Nothing happens here. T stays as T, V stays as V. Tvůj. The same here. Svůj, one's own. Svůj. Svůj. It's not zvůj, but svůj. Svátek, a holiday. Svátek. Svět, the world. Svět. Světlo, light. Sv, světlo. Cvok, a loon, a fool. Cvok. Kvůli, because of. Kvůli. Or kvam, to you, to your place. Kvam. They're all pronounced as voiceless and voiced. But the other way around, it is a different story. So if we have a V and a voiceless consonant, the voiceless consonant would affect it. We've already seen it. Poléfka. Another example would be včela, a bee. Or včera, včela, včera. Or celku, overall, same thing. Celku. In other words, V does not have any authority, and it's often influenced by others. More exceptions. If you look at the table and you see these unpaired consonants, m, n, y, r, l, r as well, they are voiced, but they don't have any voiceless counterpart. What does that mean? They stay voiced, because what would they change into? There's nothing. If there is a consonant preceding one of these unpaired voiced consonants, nothing's gonna happen to this. For example, slovo. L does not influence S either. We don't say zlovo. The same here. Sleva, sleva, slepice, or plavat. We don't say blavat unless we have a cold. Smích and sníh. Sníh. Laughter and snow. So remember, these consonants stay voiced and they do not affect the voiceless consonants either. Now you're going to learn how to spot a Moravian, a person from Moravia. So the sound h is voiced. And in Bohemia, which is like the central part of the Czech Republic towards the west, follows the progressive assimilation. So it's exactly the other way around. The first consonant affects the one that's right after it. It progresses, goes forward. Whereas in Moravia, it's regressive assimilation. The traditional procedure that we went over and over today. What does that mean for us? For example, we all know how to say goodbye in Czech, formally. Nashledanou. Nashledanou. A person from Bohemia would probably say nashledanou. H is voiced, s is voiceless. And we follow the progressive assimilation, which is the other way around. S influences h, which becomes h. Nashledanou, nashledanou. And what happens with most people from Moravia? H is voiced, s is voiceless. H influences s. What do we get? Zhledanou, nazhledanou. They could say nazhledanou. There are more words like this. For example, the word schoda, which means an agreement or a match. You ask someone in the Czech Republic how they read it. Moravian will say zhoda, more likely, and Bohemian would say schoda. And now you can find all the Moravian spies pretending to be Bohemians. And now it's time for a short exercise. Let's read these words. This first one means I am answering. Pause the video if you want to think about it. And we read it as odpovídám. This becomes t. Odpovídám. So we do have a regressive assimilation happening here. Odpovídám. What about this one? Pause the video. We read it as špenát. Nothing happening here because p and sh are both voiceless. Špenát, spinach. What about these two? In the pocket and from the pocket. Pause the video. V kapse, f, v kapse. Z kapsy, s. So here is f, here is s. A regressive assimilation happened in both of them. What about this one? A fairy tale. Pause the video. Pohádka. T. Pohádka. Pohádka. What about this one? Pause the video. Služba. Nothing happening because b and the ž are both voiced. That's one. And also this one. L is voiced. S is voiceless. But what did we say about these unpaired consonants? M, n, l, r. They do not affect any voiceless consonants. How do you read these three words? Pause the video. Květina. Nothing happens. Kniha. The same. Okno. Why? Because here is v. Although it is voiced, we said that v has no power. What's behind it? It cannot influence anything. Here is n. Although it is voiced, it also does not affect anything. Okno, n, the same case. Květina, a flower. Kniha, a book. Okno, a window. What about this one? Někde. Někde, here is g. It's influenced by d, 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 d. So here it's regressive assimilation. What about this one? Svoboda, svoboda. V again. And remember, V has no authority, no power. It's only influenced by others. Svoboda stays the same. Liberty, freedom. And the last, there is a sentence for you, which means I collect stamps with Daniel. How do you read this? Sbírám známky s Danielem. Sbírám známky s Danielem. So these two become voiced. Perfect. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. Uvidíme se za týden. Ahoj!